How's it going? And welcome to episode 230 of On the Wire, proud member of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. I am Adam Howe, joined as always by Kevin Hasting. Thank you all for listening and or watching. This late into the season, we are in September, Kevin. We are in September. It's amazing. We are in the literal home stretch to the finish line. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Thank you. Also, pretty anxious about some of my teams, my fantasy teams, my Kansas City Royals, who I'm currently distracted, have a one-run lead with 2 outs in the ninth, but a 3-0 count on Brooks Lee, so I'm a little distracted there. But yeah, no, this is amazing. This is right. This is why we enjoy playing fantasy baseball, right? Is for the playoffs in our head-to-head leagues and the final stretch run in our roto leagues. Yeah.
Yeah, and then for both of us, just following our teams, we're going to talk about 2 injuries, one on each of our teams that we'll have to deal with down the stretch, and just watching, that battle for the wild card. And, I think at one point I at least had some pie in the sky dreams that the Red Sox could leapfrog over the Blue Jays. They were within striking distance of the division, but now the Yankees have leapfrogged them back over as well. They're not, they got to do some battling with the Yankees first. So I'm just happy to be sitting in an actual wild card spot and not being there right now. The Sox are the second one in. You guys, we'll see after this win, you could be tied with the Rangers, or if the Rangers lose their game, a whole lot of. It's still early September. We were recording this again back on Friday night.
Scoreboard watching is back, right? Yeah, the Rangers are leading Houston 3-1 in the 7th. I have that pulled up as well, and that's what we're talking about this being such a fun time of year. All the scoreboard watching and switching back and forth between games as well. I feel like, as good as Kansas City has been since the All-Star break, one of the best records in baseball, in spite of a couple of hiccups this week. Man, Joe Adell just killed my Royals this week, Adam.
Oh, geez.
Two wins. He alone cost my Royals 2 wins, which would have them in that wild card spot at the moment that they're a game and a half back out of.
Joe Adell is except for the fact that he's been on the same team the whole time, Joe Adell is like the epitome of giving those who really believed in Jared Kelenic hope. It's like if you can take that long to actually hit your prospect pedigree, that expectations, then there is hope for the likes of Jared Kelenic as well. The only difference is Adele's been just doing it with the Angels the whole time, as opposed to Kelenic, who's played for 7 teams since being drafted.
But yeah, it's been really cool to see with Joe Adell, right?
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's only a couple of percentage points, but it really does, in my mind, have a lot to do with that strikeout rate. And I'm sure that's what a lot of people think. But just even getting that down to the mid-20s from the high 20s, such a huge thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to talk about somebody right off the bat here who doesn't really have a problem with strikeout rate as he's coming up. And we'll get into a bunch of other injuries and what have you. But I want to start off today on a positive note. We did see the September 1st call-ups, both call-ups and, returns to rosters, because we get those extra roster spots on all of the rosters. Of course, if you're making your debut, if you're not on that team, these players aren't necessarily eligible for the playoffs and what have you. But we do see some added bonuses. I'll be honest with you, the only name that really stood out to me was Sal Stewart. And we mentioned him on and off throughout the course of the season, you specifically in the wild card section quite a bit. Now he is here. We will be able to bid on him. He, of course, is one of the top prospects for the Cincinnati Reds, for those who are not aware. Did get the call up, did start at first base for his first 2 games up with the Reds, but then sat for 2 games. Played most of his time in the minors in both AA and AAA at third base, and more than a handful of games at second base. So that was, I think, a lot of people's expectation as he moved into Cincinnati, that maybe he relieves McLean a little bit at second base. Maybe he gives Brian Hayes some time off at third base. No, he's been starting. Anytime he did start, he does start at first base. And he already has eligibility at first base in the NFBC, as we were looking that up earlier today. Of course, he is eligible to be bid on, so you can go into your bidding and go ahead and put a bid on if you want. I found that really odd, since he only played 2 games at first base at AAA and never played first base before that in a professional level. Played almost exclusively at third base with more than a handful of games at second base as well. So in Yahoo, second base, third base eligibility, great. NFBC went with the first base eligibility. Any clue why?
No, not at all. In fact, I think it's probably a mistake, unless there's something we're missing on where he's been playing. So I'm going to dig deeper into that actually prior to Sunday. From what we were looking at, I believe he would be third base eligible in FBC typically. He'll be first base eligible next season. As of right now, right, more starts at first base than at designated hitter.
Yes.
So he
Or
would have
any
first
other
base
position.
eligibility. Yeah. So, that is very curious. Unfortunately, Spencer Steer was banged up for those couple of days that he did get those starts at first base, and he sat the other 2. As you mentioned, Brian Hayes at third base. The hope would be, for me, big Sal Stewart fan, that maybe we see Stewart back in the outfield, but Austin Hayes is out there now. Noel Marte moved to right field. So I think he's a backup player and a literal extra guy with the roster expansion that we're only going to see once or twice a week, unfortunately.
It's odd to see that happen with a player that's so highly ranked in the team's prospect rankings. Like, he's either, depending on whatever list you look at, 1 or 2 on the Reds prospect ranks. And so to have him come up and not let him play, because they're not mathematically eliminated, but the Reds are 6 games out from the final wild card spot in the National League. They're not intentionally tanking by any stretch, but they're not being honest with themselves if they are competing for that spot. So I mean, why do you call up somebody like that and not give him regular playing time to get him acclimated? Because this is also the assumption that he'll be on the opening day. I mean, at least he'll be competing for an opening day roster spot on the Cincinnati Reds.
I think that's part of it. Just get him up there, get him the experience, right? He will be on the opening day roster next season. He's not going to lose any rookie eligibility in this time. There's no reason not to have him in the clubhouse and around the major league players for this final month of the season. As far as his eligibility or what it's going to cost the team in terms of dollars as well. So if they have the capability to call somebody up, why not him? That's the only thing I can think of. I know that's not a great answer.
Yeah,
but
I'd like to see them play him more often.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, just being present is great, but at least let him keep it, because this is a guy. No matter what you think about his playing, like his performance, he acts like a major leaguer. Like, he's just very not only happy to be there, but like he's providing energy to that team that I don't think this team really has seen, especially with the rotating door of the infield that we've seen on the Reds this year. And he's just bringing a lot of energy. So it's been, obviously, he brings a lot of energy because he's making his debut. But
spelled differently, but I'd much rather see him than either of the Hayeses.
Right. Yeah, that's fine to say. Any other names you saw come up through this roster expansion that are like that struck your fancy? Because I'll be honest, I didn't see anybody that I was excited about.
No, Didn't. And I went through and sorted in a couple of my leagues by plate appearances over the past week just to see if there was somebody I was missing,
Mhm.
and went way down the list. I didn't even pay attention to performance. All I wanted to see is if I'm missing anybody getting playing time that we didn't notice, and I don't see anybody of note.
All right. Well, let's get into some players that are not going to have any playing time for the foreseeable future, unfortunately, as they are all hitting
That's a
the
good
IL.
segue, but it sounds so horrible.
The most recent one I saw come across the desk here was in San Diego. Nestor Cortez hits the IL with left bicep tendonitis. As quickly as he came into their lives, he is out of their lives for the Padres fans. What kind of opening does this create in the Padres rotation, and who's filling it for probably the remainder of September?
Yeah, this is crazy. They were already short, it
Mhm.
seemed like, but it Michael King, we actually getting him back now. We've thought we were a couple of times.
Mhm.
They're in Colorado this weekend, and we have Pavetta going on Friday, of course. Randy Vasquez, Dylan Cease, and then Darvish and King Monday and Tuesday. It looks like these will be the five going forward to me. I agree with what Jason has listed on the probable starters grid on roster resource. That's the way I would line them up right now.
Yeah, I mean it's tough to. We're going to get into a couple more of these starters that are hitting the IL the early September, and it's hard not to think we just won't see them again at least
Right.
through the month of September. I mean, there's always the chance, for some of these playoff teams that they come back in the middle of a very strong playoff run. But yeah, you can rest assured that you can drop pretty much any of these guys at this point in the season. Another one, unfortunately, Kevin, we'll get right into your Royals here. Seth Lugo, he hits the IL with low back tightness and, very well might be just feeling all the pressure on his back carrying that rotation for as long as he has, but not performing in any stretch in recent memory. So, addition by subtraction, I don't know. That's a mean thing to say, but
Yeah, kind
overall,
of. It
yeah.
really is. This is one of those injuries that did he really have to go on the
Right.
IL? Maybe not. But he did need to skip a start or two.
Yeah.
So that may be what we're seeing here. Uh, Stephen Kolek uh, was great this week. We're going to see him again Saturday against Minnesota, and then probably versus Cleveland towards the end of next week. I'm interested. Cleveland much better versus righties than they are lefties, but I'm still a little interested. Kolek looked really good earlier this week. We've seen Bergert was already in the rotation. Michael Waka is the only Royals starter that has not hit the IL this season. And right now, him and Lorenzen, the only two from the rotation to start the season that are healthy right now. So Berger and Kolek getting their starts here, and both have performed well recently, coming over from San Diego before the deadline. Noah Cameron, of course, has been mostly great. A couple of hiccups for much of the season, ever since Reagan's went down. But yeah, it's going to be more starts for Kolek till we get Lugo back.
Well, speaking of Reagan's, he is hitting. He has been sent on a rehab start. His plan for him. What was it? I think he's supposed to start on Wednesday. Um, and he's going to play 2 innings supposedly. We'll see how many pitches that equates to, and if he does go the full 2 innings and how that performs. How many rehab starts do you expect to see out of Reagan's, as long as there is availability to do that? And then are you expecting Bailey Falter to come back anytime in September as well? So are there reinforcements for the very end stretch run that you're expecting for your Royals?
I think it depends a lot day by day on how these games go and what this wild card race is looking like. I, I I think we do see Cole Reagans before the end of the season. His first rehab start is Sunday, this
Oh,
Sunday.
sorry.
After that start, there's 3 weeks left in the season.
Right.
I would guess he needs at least 2 more. I think they want him to be comfortably able to go 5. So if he goes 2, 3, and then maybe 4 and a third or whatever, I think it's 2 more rehab starts, unless they are comfortable, you know, letting him throw 3 innings at the major league level like we saw with Ohtani. Of course, Riggins isn't hitting to give them that incentive
Mm,
and whatever them
sure.
in the offensive lineup, but is 2 or 3 innings of Cole Riggins at the major league level while he's, uh, you know, working up, is that better than something else they have? We don't see that very often, so I expect to see a couple more rehab starts, and then that means we're only getting 1 or 2 out of him at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean your Omaha team, their season ends on the 21st. At least their regular season does. So I'm venture to guess that if he's going to do the majority of his rehab stints at the AAA level, or at least the final 2 or 3, that's all he's going to get.
Yeah, Kansas City's kind of funny, the organization, in that their other minor league teams aren't nearly as close to Kansas City. So
Right.
Omaha is where he will be.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I always find it funny. Actually, there are more examples that I've seen where their AAA team is like right next door or very close by. It's always funny to see a team that has their AAA team so far away, and they end up
Yeah,
having to do most of their rehab stints at like a high A because that happens to be the closest one. But yeah, Omaha, Kansas City, obviously. Yeah,
and the lower levels are ending sooner as well,
that's true. Yeah, so
their
AAA
seasons.
is really the only option anyway. All right. Well, let me close that tab so my computer doesn't fry on me. Let's see how many tabs I can open at one time. Spencer Aaron Getty is the other starter here, hitting the IL with right elbow inflammation. Obviously, you don't want to see that, but you can safely drop Aaron Getty if you were streaming him or if you had just been kind of riding that out. And any openings being filled with Aaron Getty not being an option any further?
Um, I don't think so. They did call up Colton Gordon for the start here on Friday.
Mhm.
However, with them recently getting Christian Javier back and Luis Garcia, I think they're pretty set. And unless they want to go 6, don't even need Gordon going forward.
Yeah, so keep an eye on how that irons itself out. But at the very least, Aaron Getty no longer an option for anybody, at least through 2025. There's a couple of starters in here that we're going to talk about. John Means did have his final probably rehab stint pushed back. He was supposed to start today as we're recording this on Friday. Cleveland decided to push it back to at least till Saturday, as reported he's just dealing with an illness, so not anything pushed back because of his arm or shoulder or anything else in that. So if he does make it the start though on Saturday and all things go well, that could line him up to make his debut next week against the Chicago White Sox. Is that, knowing what that matchup could possibly be? Well, actually, I was going to ask, are you going to be able to bid on him this week? But you're not going to be able to bid on him unless somebody
Unfortunately.
drafted him and dropped him. But that's got to be at least a nice little incentive to see, if for those that you can't pick him up in like daily moves leagues next week or what have you, that he could be getting that start against the White Sox, especially with all the games that Cleveland has going back to back to back in between last week, this week, and the week after. They can use whatever help they can get, just kind of plugging guys in without pushing anybody out of the rotation. Any other? I mean, we talked about John Means a little bit last week, but any other thoughts on John Means since we talked last?
No, unfortunately, it's going to be at least another week after this. Well, it was going to be another week anyway with this one more rehab start, but
Mhm.
we don't get to see it at the major league level yet. So now, yeah, we're waiting. I think this is, in other leagues and formats where you can grab him if he's available. This is close enough. I probably make a make a bid here where I have room, depending, right? There's so many things to pay attention to at this time of year with playoffs and things. But I think I'm interested in John Means when he's available to us. I guess that's the easiest way to say that.
Well, last week we talked about, all these guys that are coming up. Obviously, Tong and Tole and then
Yeah.
Bradish. They were like the top three options as they're coming up. One of them coming back from injury, the other two making debuts. So next week it'll be John Means being the one that we're considering from the coming back from injury, but we'll also be considering Brandon Sproat, who is making his MLB debut, of course, on Sunday, making him ineligible for us to bid this week. We'll talk about him a little bit more next week after we kind of see what the Mets' plans are. But it leads me to ask you this question about, we only have so many weeks left. Like, how can you even have your mind looking forward at this point rather than, being so focused on this particular week? Throughout the season, we might even suggest like, hey, look ahead of the schedule, get some guys early, what have you. Are we beyond that at this point where like, Sprout and Means are going to be available next week? Are you even considering holding back any of your funds this week in anticipation of grabbing those guys later?
I don't know if I would consider it holding back funds. However, in leagues where adding one of those two pitchers, I think can be a big help in this final couple of weeks of the season, because that's where we'll be by that point. Only 2 weeks remaining in the season when we're talking FAAB next weekend. I just wouldn't, at this time of year, in certain situations where I have the money, it's not necessarily I'm like, all right, I'm not worried about the final 2 weeks. I'll just spend everything I have. It's not that I'm doing that. However, at the same time, that may be taken into consideration in the risk I'm willing to take on the player and the bid I'm making. Getting this player for 3 weeks, spending my last extra $2 and only saving myself $1 per week if I have an injury. Do I go ahead and spend all $6-7 I have right now, or try to save it for the next couple of weeks? I may take that into account in a situation like that, but if you're phrasing it, are you saving money? Not really.
No,
Probably not.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, one of the reasons we'll be seeing Brandon Sproat is because the Mets also decided to option Kodai Senga after a string of poor performances there as well, which was an interesting situation because Senga had to approve that they didn't basically, because of his contract, he had to actually approve the send down. He did. I mean, he won't be there. He won't be down that long, since, as we keep saying, there's not that many games left at the at the lower levels and AAA specifically as well. But I mean, you're still dropping Kodai Senga at this point if you haven't already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has got to be fun for Mets fans. Yeah, yes, absolutely. To answer your question, I am. I was kind of muffled there, I think, for a second. But if I'm a Mets fan, comfortably in that final wild card spot right now, and then going into the postseason with Tong, Sproat, and McLean, that's fun.
It is fun.
That's so much fun for guys like us, right? If we were Mets fans, we would be loving that.
Yes, but you'd also be sitting on the edge of your seat, sweating.
Oh, that's why it's so much. Yeah, you may not be expressing the enjoyment. Sure. You may be expressing other things, but that whole process would be so much fun.
Yeah, just imagine, but if that's their three in the wild card series, in that 3-game series, those are your 3 starters. That's fun. That would be fun.
Yeah,
no pressure, guys.
Now, they probably, David Peterson probably gets one of those starts, but I mean, yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you don't not start McLean at this
right.
point, the way he's performing. But yeah, Peterson obviously gets in there as well. All right, well, we got some other moves in the bullpen, some more IL stints, and some other roster moves to get to. But we got to take our first break. All right, Kevin, we're going to move over to Detroit, where they made the announcement that Chris Paddack would be officially out of the rotation. Yes, that also means that he'll be joining the bullpen. Those are usually one and the same, by the way. You don't have to say it in a tweet, just saying. Along with Paddack moving into the bullpen, my Boston Red Sox also moved Dustin May into the bullpen, at least for this past week. Alex Cora did not say whether or not he'd be moving back into the rotation next week, but I think a lot of us are expecting that that move to happen. And so with a couple of just moves, I mean, the other thing that happened in Boston is once they put Walker Buehler into the bullpen, then they DFA'd him. By the way, Walker Buehler is now with the Phillies. And so he will be eligible for the playoffs with Philadelphia now as well. But regardless, Chris Paddack moving to the bullpen first in Detroit. Does this free up a rotation spot in Detroit? Was it just like he was the odd man out? Now they're moving to a 5-man rotation. Talk to me about options that we might have for the Tigers.
We've been seeing him a little bit. This just solidifies Sawyer Gipson Long. I think we'll see him on Tuesday at the Yankees. So I'm not too interested in that. There was another matchup that popped in my head. Right, Dustin May. That's what I thought at the Athletics. So I'm not interested in that if he does get that start. Unfortunately, so yeah, these are definitely. These are more interesting to my baseball fandom than to my fantasy playing, I think.
Yeah. Well, we'll stick with the Red Sox first. Just as a side note, we talked about Kyle Harrison, whether he would line up to make that start. Obviously, he didn't earlier in the week, but then it was rumored that he would move from Worcester to Boston, another AAA team that's very close to the major league team. That's about a 20-minute drive without traffic, which there is always traffic, so it's always longer than that. He did not end up getting the call up midweek just because he's dealing with an ankle injury of sorts as well. So he's packed up already, ready to go. As soon as that ankle apparently it sorts itself out, he could be an option at some point or another. Kyle Harrison should readily be available for bidding, though. If he is available, he's made his MLB debut. He's been on a roster for he's played in the majors this year. Because of the basically announcement that he was being called up, I mean, are you interested in bidding on him? We're still available this week, even though he hasn't actually made that call.
I think so, slightly. A lot of us have been interested before the trade. Right? We were like, let's get Kyle Harrison back up here. So yeah, I'm intrigued, and it I don't think I have any teams where this is the case, but if I have a team where I have that extra room and there's nothing I need to do for this week, I'm probably throwing $1 on him. I think we see him before the end of the year.
Yeah, at this point, I'll back up my tracks. I said
if they need a starter, it's probably him.
Yeah, as long as that ankle is not
exactly
as bad as maybe it sounded.
Right.
Moving back over to Detroit, though, with Chris Paddack adding to the bullpen, that comes at a weird time because he kind of takes the place of Kyle Finnegan, who had been a very good addition to their bullpen coming over from Washington at the trade deadline. But he hits the IL with a right abductor strain. So we won't be seeing him closing out games for the foreseeable future. It is retroactive to September 1st, ironically, when rosters did expand. But I still expect him to be out, for quite a while. Do you just expect Will Vest to kind of retake that job? Or is, anybody else kind of, step into that role?
Yeah. It'd been a few days, but we were still seeing Vest in the ninth a time or two with Finnegan there. So, yeah, I expect it to be Vest. With AJ Hinch, I never expect it to be 100% one guy. But in general, it's Vest. There's nobody that I don't think even if I'm really desperate for saves, I don't think I'm going past Will Vest in this bullpen.
Yeah, like you said, don't expect Hinch to use one guy, but Finnegan's been a surprise. Finnegan, coming
Right.
over, did not expect him to go right
Yeah, we
into
thought
that
Vest
closer
would
role.
keep
Never
the
mind
job
take it.
alive. I thought Vest would mostly keep the job.
Right.
Finnegan got more ninth innings than I thought he would.
Yeah. Well, you can go back out and grab Vest if somebody did drop him at this point.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, check that rostership on Vest because as Finnegan was pretty much rolling with the job, sure plenty of people realized, hey, we can go ahead and drop him.
Vest is still 93% even in 12s.
Oh, there
So
we go. All right. Well,
yeah.
7%. Always check. All right.
For a
Going
second, I
over.
thought we needed to add a name for later in the show.
Then we go back to my Red Sox, unfortunately, in the negative news here, going into some hitters that hit the IL. Roman Anthony hit the IL with an oblique strain. Alex Cora expects him to be out 4 to 6 weeks from the time of the injury, which happened very early on in the week. And so with him basically missing the remainder of the regular season, obviously he is droppable. As much as it will hurt me to do so, easy drop here. The name that really ironically that kind of stood out to me was Romy Gonzalez kind of taking over the playing time from Anthony being missing, and then the other injuries that the Red Sox are hitting. He's getting pretty much everyday playing time at first base. Anything else that you've noticed in my Red Sox lineup with Anthony pretty much missing the rest of the regular season and probably the wild card round as well?
No, and this is intriguing. I really do want to figure something out here over the weekend. With them facing a lefty on Friday, they were off Thursday, and they even faced a lefty on Wednesday. So it's kind of difficult to piece everything together here. But Nate Eden probably only playing versus lefties still. So same with Rob Refschneider. I'm very curious to see where the Red Sox are going here. As you said, Romy Gonzalez was already playing every day, 8 straight games, including Friday now being in the lineup. So this for one, and we were already seeing this versus righties. Yoshida was getting all of the DH starts versus righties. I'm going to throw this back to you, Adam, because there's opportunity here for somebody. Is it going to be somebody that can help us? Is it going to David Hamilton? We know can help us in stolen bases, but he's just not getting on base at all since the first month of the season when he was actually pretty helpful to some of our teams. But yeah, what's going on with the Red Sox here? This is a question for you, not for me.
The 1-for-1 trade on the roster was bringing back up Nick Sogard. And so he started at second base on Wednesday. He's not in the starting lineup today on Friday. Allowing Romy Gonzalez to move back and forth on the right side of the infield between first base and second base, which is what he's pretty much been doing the last month or so. Anyway, so unfortunately, I don't think we see anybody that is going to be noticeably relevant for our teams down the stretch. I think that it just does solidify Romy Gonzalez between his performance, and he has done this. He has gone stretches where he plays regularly and then continues to kind of prove why he should be playing regularly until everybody's perfectly healthy, and then he's kind of the odd man out, right? Or they randomly sign a first baseman to play for a couple weeks and then DFA him a couple weeks later. So I think Romy Gonzalez is the play here, especially since he has so much eligibility in most formats. Yahoo, he's pretty much eligible everywhere except for catcher. And then Nick Sogard may fill in at second base, especially if they're going to call up Nick Sogard to fill in that gap when they already have David Hamilton on the roster. And so obviously they're not interested in letting David Hamilton kind of figure things out. So I don't foresee the playing time going back to Hamilton at this point. So yeah.
And Sogard, you would expect to play versus lefties. This is part of what's weird here. They've faced a lot of lefties recently,
Yeah.
but they do face 4 out of 6 righties this coming week. That's what makes this difficult, and definitely worth monitoring over the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if Abreu comes back before the
That
end of the
that
season as
that would
well.
that would solve everything for the Red Sox. Yeah.
For the Red Sox. But yeah, I mean, forcing ultimately Rafaela to play every day at center field since Abreu has been out, kind of shifting around that outfield. It gives him a little bit less flexibility. Abreu obviously would change a lot of that. All right, well, let's finally get out of Boston and go down to who Boston is playing right now, and that is the Arizona Diamondbacks, with Lourdes Gurriel Jr. hitting the IL earlier this week with a torn ACL. Obviously, easy drop, quite easily. We'll see if he's ready to play, when he's ready to play in 2026. But at this point, just losing Gurriel Jr., are you seeing an impact in him being out of Arizona's options in their lineup?
Yeah, this has been interesting. Blaze Alexander's been playing outfield 3 of the last 4 days. And so, by the way, I just told Gurriel Jr.'s rehab goes okay. I was watching the game live when that
Oh
happened,
man,
and you could have dropped him from his fantasy team before the ball was declared dead.
yeah.
Like, you knew he was out for the year. It was bad, unfortunately. So best wishes to him, number one. But yeah, so Blaze Alexander playing outfield now, and we're seeing Ketel Marte, less designated hitter. We've got Eldemaro Vargas being in there. Another team that's been facing a ton of
They
lefties
really have.
here in Arizona, making this really difficult to analyze. I was looking at this earlier today as well, Adam. So real quick, what do they have coming up this week as far as 5 righties out of 6 games? So yeah, much like Boston, we need to see a couple lineups versus righties before Sunday night.
Yeah, they've had what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lefties out of their last 9.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't make a sample size very, especially with the other, Pavin Smith going down earlier in the week as well, or the very beginning of the week, or actually late last week. So they've had other injuries to kind of finagle in that 9-game stretch that, just we have to figure that out. They made some call ups. They haven't really been playing and filling in the gaps. And so to move Blaze Alexander into the outfield kind of out of necessity has been interesting. So he's got the 3 games.
Yeah, versus these lefties. They'll
Specifically
play
playing
Alec
center
Thomas
field
and
too.
Jake McCarthy versus righties, but are they going to move Blaze Alexander back to the infield on those days? Yeah, there's quite a bit to see here that with these, and they made Lawler's been back up. We haven't seen him do much yet at the major league level. Barossa and Vargas, I mentioned earlier, all of their starts seem to be coming versus lefties. It might be Alec Thomas and Jake McCarthy. That might be our answer. It might be that easy, but I'm not so sure that's what Arizona wants to do.
Yeah, Lawler's pretty much. It's funny because he started in 6 of the last 7 or 6 of the last 8, almost all of them against the lefties.
All
And
but one.
so it's
Yeah.
like it appears as though he has a lot of starts, but it also appears he's on a short side of the platoon. And
Right.
so moving forward with all those righties that they're expected to see, we'll kind of see how that irons itself out. But we may not see a lot of Jordan Lawler in the next week or so. All right, we're going to move down or back up to Detroit as they do welcome back Parker Meadows from the IL. Do you expect him to slot right back into pretty much an everyday role, or what kind of role are you expecting out of Meadows for the remainder of the season in Detroit?
No, I expect to see him right back in center field as we did see here on Friday. So the Javier Baez is shortstop only once again, I believe. But it's interesting. Zach McKinstry, I don't know. There was it was who tweeted it. or no, it was on Blue Sky. Mike Petriello, right? For the entire season, Zach McKinstry is third in all of baseball in terms of on base plus slugging percentage at home. Now, Detroit is away all of this upcoming week, and Zach McKinstry has been good enough that he's rostered everywhere. That statement might surprise some people that play in shallow leagues and don't have to go that deep.
Sure.
But yeah, Zach McKinstry will be in the lineup for the Tigers. So there might be some an extra day off here and there, more than we'd like to see for Parker Meadows. But I do believe he's going to perform better than we saw early in the year. I think we're going to see the Parker Meadows we wanted to see. So I think he's a nice add if available. I was actually surprised. As long as he has been on the IL, maybe he was picked up this last week. I don't think I looked at him last weekend since he would be eligible. He was drafted in leagues, so he was probably picked up last weekend to test anticipation of him being back this weekend, because he's not. There's not a lot of availability. Not what I was expecting. Put it that way.
It's the thing is that maybe it was injury related, but like before the IL stint, he was missing quite a few games. He wasn't playing every day either. And so if you do see him get a couple days off next week, I wouldn't be terribly surprised, unless it's out of necessity to kind of keep him in there every single day due to other instances that you were talking about.
And he just homered in his first game back, so he just got more expensive where he is available.
Yes. Good timing, Parker. All right. Well, another returnee here, this time into a rotation. Minnesota gets back Pablo Lopez. He comes back from his own IL stint, activated, I think, just yesterday or today, as we were talking. I mean, I assume most people have held on to Pablo Lopez, but is this kind of kicking anybody out of consideration down the stretch for the Twins in their rotation?
I don't really think so. We got Joe Ryan and Bailey Ober. They're confirmed for the weekend. I know that because they're playing the Royals, and then we've been seeing Woods Richardson, Zebby Matthews. So I think this is the five we'll see the rest of the way as long as they stay healthy here for Minnesota. As bad as they are performed as a team, these are these are guys we're interested in on the pitching side. Unfortunately, they're not getting run support, and we know, Bailey Ober, definitely. A couple of the others haven't performed like we had hoped they would this season, but these are all names we're interested in, and due to that performance and not getting run support, they have a little bit of availability out there, not a lot. And by the way, Pablo Lopez looked great versus Kansas City. Gave up a 2-run home run to Michael Garcia, but other than that, he looked really good in his first game back on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about David Fest all year. He's still hurt, not really an option.
Yep.
And then Taj Bradley not performing that well. And also, if there is a quote odd man out, it very well just could end up being Taj Bradley. As you mentioned, not really any, Jason doesn't have him being expected to start throughout the next 6 days for the Twins as well. So do you expect Bradley to, get demoted or to just move into a relief role for the remainder of the season?
I think he would still be on the roster. Yeah.
As we keep saying, there's not a whole lot of minor league season to send them down and do anything with anyway. So you almost want
exactly. That's my reasoning there.
All right, last one here. We'll go to LA as the Dodgers kind of clean up their roster a little bit throughout the course of the week. They do sign Andrew Heaney. A lot of players got signed on Sunday or even Monday morning as we hit the September 1st deadline so they could be eligible for the playoffs. I talked about Walker Buehler going to Philly. Andrew Heaney was another one of those getting signed up by the Dodgers on a minor league deal after being DFA'd by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Will Smith had been missing the weekend after a CT scan. Comes back, and we'll see a little bit more information out of him over the weekend. But he very well could miss an IL stint with enough rest over the weekend. So just keep an eye on that situation. What's nice about that is we'll know a lot more on Sunday. By the time Sunday rolls around, whether or not, if he hits the IL, obviously you can drop him. And if not, then you still have a catcher option. But they also optioned down Alex Freeland, and they DFA Alexis Diaz. It's always difficult to see it. Somebody getting DFA'd after September 1st who was on a playoff bound team. And it's like, oh man, it's like you can't do anything else with this player. Like he has only so many options to get picked up by somebody else and make, have a run for themselves. So anything worth kind of keeping an eye on in LA with these moves, or any other moves that that you're noticing with the Dodgers?
Not a whole lot. I would be intrigued in spite of the underperformance in Dalton rushing if this becomes long term for Will Smith, because I think he will be the guy. He's been the backup, and now he's got the two starts, the first two starts since the injury. So that's what I would keep an eye on, because I would be interested in two catcher leagues in rushing in that spot, with the thought that consistent playing time, we may see better results.
Fair. All right. Well, that will do it for our news section of the pod. We'll get into our actual recommendations to spend what little FAAB you have left right after this. All right. We just finished up. Of course, you're still listening to On the Wire. You're still watching us. Thank you so much for joining us each and every week throughout the season. And I don't think we missed an entire week. We either one of us missed a week here or there throughout the season, Kevin, but the show goes on with or without one of us. And so we're happy to have those that have stuck through the entire season with us each and every week. So really appreciate the time and energy you put into listening and or watching. It keeps us going and continuing to do this each and every week as well, though we'd probably be doing it even if we knew nobody was listening. Whether or not we recorded it or not, I guess that would be a different question. But Kevin and I could just keep talking about this forever. Of course, we went through a whole bunch of news and notes that are FAAB related. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that continues to happen in baseball. You should be listening to the First Pitch podcast. They will finish out the season, Jake Crumpler and Trevor Huth, that is, as they break down all the news, highlights, and observations of every day's games and look ahead to see what you need to do to win your fantasy leagues, especially in your head-to-head formats. As you're doing your playoffs, Nick Pollux has you covered with the Plus Pitch podcast when it comes to starting pitching performances. So make sure you're listening to both of those on a daily basis. Kevin, we still need to spend, again, what little money we have left. And this is not just you and me. This is literally everybody in your league who's paying attention doesn't have any money left. And so we're all on kind of equal footing with only, a limited amount of FAAB weeks to go. 3 FAABs left in the 2025 season. It is safe to try to, is a safe method, as we talk about, to keep that dollar per week. So, whatever you're spending this week, expect most of your league mates are also going to try to keep $2 left in their pocket after this week. So as you're doing your calculations on how much to bid on players, look through what the rest of your league has. If you have a little bit more than everybody else, just know you could probably get away with maxing out your bids at $2 less than what the next person above you or the top team has, because they're probably going to want to keep at least, something in their back pocket for the final 2 weeks, just like we would. But we still need to spend some money. And if we need power, Kevin, let's start off as we always do. If we need home runs, if we need RBIs, who you have your eye on?
Yeah, this one, it's kind of backwards here. I have 2 players that I like for power this week. And the one that is more rostered in 15s is less rostered in 12s. And that's Cody Clemens in Minnesota. I don't know if people realize how good he's been versus right-handed pitching this season. 15 home runs in 249 plate appearances. That's well over a 30 home run pace if he was facing righties for 600 plate appearances. And Minnesota set to face 6 out of 6 right-handed starting pitchers this week, at least to begin the game. So Clemens will be in those lineups. Now he's 93% rostered in the main event, but only 25% in 12-team online championships. So a lot of availability in everything less than 15-team leagues and 15-team leagues, other formats and sites out there. I would check as well. Check availability on Cody Clemens with all those righties this week, and the same goes for Texas Rangers. And last week I had Rowdy Tellez as my Texas Ranger. They were facing a bunch of righties. They're facing righties again this week. Jake Berger is back and getting his playing time. He was heating up right before the injury, like we've seen him do the last 2 seasons in the second half. Not home runs yet, but making a lot of contact since his return. I think he's 5 hits the past couple of games. So Jake Berger is going to start getting that ball out of the ballpark here in short order, I believe.
Yeah, you mentioned Jake Berger last week as a warning for the recommendation of picking up Rowdy Tellez.
Because of the lefty.
And this is coming to fruition at this
exactly.
point. All right, cool. Well, you got a handful of power options in there. Again, look through your availability. Make sure you've got your waterfall bids in there. We'll get to the opportunity section in a bit, but there are quite a few teams that do have 7 games ahead of them. And looking at those platoon splits are going to make all the difference. That was the main point of both of these recommendations Kevin just made between Clemens and Berger, and look at what they have going on for their opponents, and how many righties, how many lefties, what kind of platoon are we expecting for next week. Because if you can take advantage of just the first 4 days of the week, you should probably do that where you need it. And that's how you can stream these different categories, especially in September. Speed is still a necessity, though, if we're going to stream out some stolen bases or some runs, or we want to load up. Like, we're at a point, too, where you can start loading up your lineup with more than, you don't have to just get one of these guys. You can try to bid out on most of your options for speed, replacing your power if that's not what you need moving forward. Because if you're worried about anybody else taking advantage, they're going to be on the wire for a whole week, and then people are going to have to spend what little money they have to get just 2 weeks worth of these players that you're dropping. So the impact is going to be minimal at best. So don't worry about dropping good players that your opponents can pick up at this point in the game, especially if the guys you're picking up can help you in the categories that you can make the most difference in. So, Kevin, if those categories are stolen bases or runs, who might be available that can make a difference for you?
Yeah, my favorite target this week is Luis Angel Acuna. Only 4% rostered in the main event, 6% rostered in 12-team online championships. He's been back with the Major League club for just 1 game, but the Mets face 5 lefties this upcoming week. They have a 7-game week, and they are slated to face 5 lefties. So Acuna, I expect to get the playing time this week. He's 13 out of 14 on stolen bases this season before the demotion. So the problem is it's pretty tough lefties. So he might have a hard time getting on base, and also lefties being a little more difficult to get that larger lead and steal bases off of. Only 2 of his 13 did come off of left-handed pitching this season. So just a little bit of caution there. But I do think he's going to get the plate appearances. So we'll have some opportunity for stolen base. Also, Washington has a 4-game series versus Miami. Now they're the pitching handedness doesn't line up for somebody like Jacob Young, but he's still going to play a game or two. right? So anybody on Washington that is available in your league, we know they like to run as a team with that 4-game series versus Miami. I'm taking a look there. I was really hoping it'd work out for Jacob Young, because with his uh, being more of a platoon player this season than I expected him to be. He hasn't been a great set and forget guy, but unfortunately, the handedness does not quite match up. But I would take a look at anybody from Washington that I could get in there for the first half of the week anyway.
Yeah, agreed. I was definitely looking at Luis Garcia as an option in
Yeah.
my head-to-head league, where he's available, just sitting on my 12-teamer wire. Even though he's like
Nice.
rostered over 50%, he's still just sitting there. I'm like, oh man. We'll see if that works itself out for me. But another name that I was actually surprised I didn't put it in the news and you didn't throw in here. You made a comment last week. I think it was last week, or maybe it was the week prior. Atlanta has just phoned it in. They already filled out their lineup card for the remainder of the season. One change that has been made is that they did sign and bring up Ha-Seong Kim, who was DFA'd by Tampa Bay while on the IL. They claimed him, they signed him, and then they reactivated him, or they activated him from the IL. He started at shortstop for Atlanta ever since Tuesday when he made his debut for Atlanta. All 3 days, he hit a home run in his second game with Atlanta. Any interest in Kim, Ha-Seong Kim of now the Atlanta Braves, now that he's, as long as he's, quote, healthy, your point probably still stands. He's playing every single day.
I think so. I think this is what the Braves want to see. He might get a day off a week, but they're going to play him because it for a long time, right? Even when the Braves were amazing as a team, it was defensive shortstop, right? If they have a guy that is a good defensive shortstop and can also produce offensively, finally, after all these years, that's going to help them get the rest of this lineup going again.
Yeah, so he takes the place of oh man, why am I blanking on this? Who was playing shortstop for them pretty much every single day up until that point? Nick Allen. Nick Allen was pretty much playing shortstop every single day.
Early in the year, I was getting some stolen bases from, and probably held on a little longer than I should have because of that, because he was doing we talk about empty batting average sometimes, that it doesn't get any emptier than what he had been doing still in my lineup because of those few stolen bases he got me early. So
yeah,
that's good word of caution there.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, yeah. If you need some speed, he did hit a home run, so it's not empty power or empty speed with Ha-Seong Kim.
It was their first home run by a shortstop this season.
That I did not know, and that's insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Atlanta. Oh man. All right. Well, let's see who other teams and players have a good opportunity ahead of themselves this week. Like I said, there are more than a handful of teams that have a 7-game work week, including Cleveland, your Kansas City Royals, the Angels, Seattle, Miami, the Mets, Philadelphia, Washington, Colorado, and San Diego all play 7 games. Once again, nobody has just 5 games. Everybody else has at least the 6. So very slight advantage on that 7-game work week. Colorado will be away from oh man, all these teams will be away throughout the course of the week as Colorado travels to. So you got Rocky Road. This is the note. This is the beauty of Colorado. Talking about Colorado's schedule, at least you know what teams are coming into an offensive, positive switch, and then you also know who to target from a pitching streaming standpoint as well. So you'll get Rocky Road in LA against the Dodgers for 3, and then in San Diego for 3 over the weekend. Cincinnati will leave Great America's Small Park empty all week as well as they travel to San Diego and to West Sacramento against the Athletics. And then Tampa Bay will leave George Steinbrenner Field empty as they travel to Chicago to play 3 against the White Sox and then 3 against the Cubs. Though, as we mentioned, the Athletics will be hosting all week. 3 against Cincinnati over the weekend after hosting my Red Sox for 3 as well. So Not a lot of offensive ballparks to take advantage of beyond West Sacramento, but a lot of opportunity. And I mean, if you listen to Nick Pollock and actually talk to Saris on the craft a couple of weeks ago, really goes into detail about how the Tampa Bay pitchers really don't like George Steinbrenner Field because they had been so used to the Tropicana being such a a neutral playing field where pitching in not only a minor league stadium, and it's not even AAA. At least West Sacramento is a AAA stadium. Tampa is a high A stadium and a spring training stadium, I guess. But the ball just doesn't do the things you want it to do in the same environment. So pitching, when they're able to travel outside of Tampa, you can see them doing a lot of better things. Anyway, with that being said, Kevin, anything else you want to consider? Who has a good opportunity ahead of themselves this week that we might be able to take advantage of?
Yeah, the guy with the most availability going back to the Mets facing those 5 lefties is I will see Starling Marte this week. And he he doesn't steal bases like he used to, doesn't hit as many home runs as he used to, but he's not a zero anywhere. He can getting in these games versus lefties. We can get some counting stats with a decent batting average out of Starling Marte this week, I think. And then in 12 teamers, he's 100% rostered in the main event, but he's available in over half of online championship leagues. Mike Yastrzemski has been absolutely amazing as a leadoff hitter for the Kansas City Royals. In his 1 month playing with the team, he broke their record for leadoff home runs in a month. He had 4 leadoff home runs. Yastrzemski is going very well. The Royals, I believe 5, they have a 7-game week, 5 of them versus righties. So if he gets he might get an off day or even 2 with those lefties, but with the 7-game week, we'll still get 5 starts out of Yaz.
I feel like we had the same conversation last year about the Royals bringing in a new leadoff hitter to end the season in Tommy Pham. And maybe this is just what the Royals do every single year. Just close it out with a really hot leadoff hitter that nobody saw coming. All right, well, take advantage of that where you possibly can. And so plenty of hitters to consider. Make sure you have your waterfall bids set so that you can spend the right amount of money and get whatever holes you need filled. But we're going to get into some pitching recommendations after this break. All right, Kevin, great options on the hitting side. Now give us the pitching is fun, especially in this volume category, because all the call-ups that we're seeing, the fun names that are still available, and just all the changes that happen. A lot of people who, this is not FAAB related, but like Shohei Ohtani was announced he was not going to start this weekend. He was going to get pushed to Monday. And then all of a sudden, Tyler Glasnow gets pulled and Shohei Ohtani is pitching a full game on Friday night instead and pitching very well. And so all these things change on a dime, which makes, recording on a Friday that much more difficult. But we do have to project into the future to see what we have as options. By the time you're listening to this, maybe some of it has changed, but hopefully most of it has not. What are you seeing on the volume categories? We're talking chasing wins, we're talking strikeouts, those 2-star pitchers, whoever can get the best matchup and take advantage of them. Who you got?
Well, if somebody just started watching Major League Baseball 2 weeks ago, they'd wonder why I thought an outing versus the best team in baseball is a good matchup. But Tyler Wells looked good in his return, 5 innings, and he gets Pittsburgh this week. He's available everywhere. That was his season debut this week, so definitely an option, but with the caveat. Pittsburgh's been winning a lot of baseball games. Ian Seymour, we talked about last week, nearly 100% rostered in 15s, but still available in almost half of 12s. And he followed Griffin Jacks on Friday. So whether that is what they continue to do going forward, or not. Jason at Roster Resource has him listed as a starter this coming week versus the White Sox. Now, I feel like he's going to get bulk innings versus the White Sox, whether he starts the game or whether he follows someone like Griffin Jacks again. I'm interested in either one. So definitely like him where he's available in half of those 12-team leagues. Yoendris Gomez, he gets Tampa and at Cleveland for a two-step. He's only had 5 starts in the rotation. In those 5 starts, a 3.42 ERA and 27 strikeouts in 23 plus innings. He has looked really good since becoming part of that rotation. And I like those matchups for Gomez this week. Martin Perez, especially when he's facing a team that is so bad versus lefties. Loved him against the Royals a couple weeks ago, and he gave us 7 shutout 1-hit innings. And he gets Cleveland, who has been absolutely abysmal versus lefties this week. He and Gomez are both 58% rostered in 15s and 4 and 5% respectively in 12. So about the same rostership depending on size of leagues. Those are my favorites. Those are the ones I wrote down. A couple of others, though. Cleveland get 2 lefties versus the Royals. I just mentioned Martin Perez, how good he was against the Royals. Both Cantillo and Logan Allen, 2 lefties for Cleveland, get Kansas City this week. You mentioned Colorado being on the road all week. Probably the only guy available they will face, Randy Vasquez in San Diego. He's an option. He will be a ways down in my waterfall. He'll be in it, but they will have played a series in LA before the series in San Diego. They haven't just left Coors Field. I like the earlier games in their road trips even more, but I'm not running away from Rocky Road at all. So I do like Randy Vasquez this week as well.
You did not mention Jacob Latz. Why? He's lined up for a 2-starter. We talked about him last week. We don't love the 2 starts, but they are 2 starts. Milwaukee has not been as scary as they were earlier in the season. But like, is it the matchups or did you just miss them?
I think it was the matchups because we did talk about Latz either last week or the week before. So I have liked him. It must have been the matchups. I don't know.
Yeah.
As I went through, there was something there I didn't like. I didn't write him down.
No, the matchups aren't great.
Yeah.
I'm skating through. I know Milwaukee is the first one, and then after that, he would get at New York at the Mets.
Yeah.
So still 37% rostered in the main event, and so readily available. I do expect there to be plenty of bids just because of the volume. And at least that first start is in Texas, which obviously will help him a little bit. And he does seem to be a little bit more stretched out, where I do trust him to go 5 innings and qualify for the win in both. It's just a matter of whether or not he'll get it against either team.
Yeah. And if it's wins and strikeouts that you need, even if you take a hit in your ratios, if you can gain more in wins and strikeouts than you can lose by taking a hit in ratios, we're at the time of year you have to make that move, right? There's nothing that you're waiting for anymore, right? So yeah, I love that call.
Yeah. Johan Oviedo also looking pretty good today in his start. Only gets a single start against Baltimore, probably against Baltimore next week. I wouldn't be able to understand why Pittsburgh wouldn't give him at least another start, especially after his performance today. So that is a single start, but he is somebody that could rack up, as many strikeouts as a poor starter getting 2 starts. Yeah, there's a possibility Oviedo gets as many strikeouts as Jacob Latz next week in that single start. So don't love the matchup against Baltimore. In Baltimore, it's probably kind of evens itself out. So Oviedo readily available as well in most formats. So Just a name to add to your waterfall bid. Ratios, though, Kevin, we need to stabilize those for the rest of the season. Who could give us the innings to actually make an impact there?
Yeah, I mentioned Brad Keller. It was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now, and he has continued to be amazing. In fact, he still hasn't given up a run since the All-Star break, I don't think, like 30 some innings even. Brad Keller has been awesome, and in this week's article, Rick Graham's hold article, it Brad Keller could be in line for some saves as well. I know that's the Knicks category, but he could be the next guy up, and we've seen some struggles there in the ninth in Chicago. Matt Svanson has been absolutely amazing for the past couple of months, and Cole Sands over a 30% K minus BB rate recently. Just guys, Sands we've talked about in this category. Keller we've talked about. Svanson's a new one for me. But he's been absolutely lights out. To adding these guys to the list. As I mentioned, some guys you want to be careful about though, like, and it's hard to know ahead of time unless we hear it from a beat reporter, a report. But some of these nice ratios guys like Griffin Jacks going out there as an opener, that still helps our ratios, but then we're losing I know it's a slight chance, but we're losing any chance at all we have for either a win or a save in that. So as readily available as so many of these guys are, if you think that's what we're going to continue to see out of Griffin Jacks, if he's going to go out there as an opener, he's a drop.
Yeah. Somebody I was looking at last week and just seeing how many innings they pitched. Aaron Ashby, we talked about in the past week or two as well, also being used as an opener here or there as well. So even though he's been used like 5 out of like 6 games, racking up innings in general, does lose the opportunity at vulturing those wins in the middle of games. I'd rather it be the first man up than out of the bullpen than starting the game, for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Brad Keller, possibly option for saves, but who is any other situations that, I mean, besides Will Vest, where he's not available, as we just mentioned, pretty much everywhere except for 7% of leagues. Who else is out there that could, steal some saves for us in the final 3 weeks?
24 out of 27 weeks of the season over, and we still don't know who's the closer in Texas. But it seems like it's Sharm Armstrong now, and he's had a pretty darn good year. I was actually rostering him as one of the ratios guys because we've talked about him in the past fairly recently, probably about a month ago. So I actually had Sean Armstrong rostered in a spot or two, and he's the most recent guy getting saves. And it does appear that is what it will be like going forward. That's what Rick Graham has in his article. He thinks it's Sharm Armstrong. Maybe not 100%, just like we were talking with Will Vest earlier, but probably the guy. So Sharm Armstrong is my number one target if I really need saves. It's hard with only 3 weeks to go. Speculating is so hard, but I know some leagues, it's a couple of saves can get you a couple of points. So somebody like Brad Keller, I probably grab and hope the Cubs decide to make that move.
Yeah, Armstrong pitching today for the Rangers right now as they're going into extra innings. Just got the one out to close out the 10th inning. And so he was saved until, as late into the game as they could possibly wait. So that is a good sign in general. Though on the other side of the ball, currently pitching is our boy, Craig Kimbrell, for the Astros. So see how that,
imagine that there's runners on second and third and one out.
Yeah, imagine that. So it looks like Armstrong might be in line for the win.
For the win,
we'll
should have saved that till Monday for us.
They could walk. I mean, that's the best. Is like you come in, you get one out, and then the other team, and then your team walks it off in the bottom, and so you get that win after just pitching just one. The game's not over. They haven't scored yet.
Right.
There's only one out, second and third. I'll announce it when I see it come through. All right, Cool. So wherever you can, get those bids into, shore up whatever pitching categories that are the most focus for you. But if you don't have anything in particular, you need a wild card selection, Kevin. You got one on here. Talk to me about who could fill in the gap, your wild card gap on your roster, as if one actually existed.
No, I didn't have a wild card this week, Adam.
Oh, you didn't. That's my
When
name.
I was, yeah,
That's from last
that's
week.
you. Yeah. Oh, I missed that when I was erasing
Oh,
our,
that's
our
right.
last week's picks from the outline. Apologies there. No. We're to the point now. Sure, there's a couple of these pitchers we talked about that we may see come back. We talked about Cole Reagans at length last week. We're talking about John Means. I guess it'd be John Means, as we talked about him. I did say if I had a spot, I would pick him up in leagues. It
He's
would
just
be
not available.
somebody along those lanes. Yeah, we can't do that yet this week. Yeah, that's tough. I'm using my spot for players. If they're not in my starting lineup on Monday, or we're also to the point where I'm not carrying extra pitchers yet. It's not the final week where I'm dropping them all but one automatically.
Mhm.
But you can look at a 3-week schedule right now, and you can
Right.
right. If my team stays healthy, am I using this guy? No. Then replace him with somebody that you will use if somebody gets hurt over the next couple of weeks,
Mhm.
right? But yeah, there really isn't anything that I'm holding back for at this point, unfortunately. Since I know you love this category.
Right.
But yeah, I just can't right now.
No,
I need all my spots.
September's tough. I think
Yeah.
that point you kind of threw in there about knowing how, like we talk about the beginning of the season, how you're going to draft your bench, how you're going to build up your bench,
Yes.
especially early on. It's a completely new ball game in September, where you want to take advantage of as many platoon splits, as many hitting opportunities as you possibly can, because you can make those adjustments halfway through the week, and you can take more, you can get more, you can squeeze more out of that lemon and throughout the week on the hitting side than you can on pitching side. If you're not going to pitch them this week, there's a strong possibility you're not going to pitch them next week or even the final week of the season. Go ahead and just start tearing down that those bench spots, filling them in with hitters that, something were to happen, you want to make sure somebody does get hurt and you're not sure they're not going to put them on the IL and it's all questionable. Friday, you have the opportunity to kind of flip in and fill in those spots to get as many of those hitting categories as you can. You're not going to be able to do
I
anything
like this
if your pitcher
comment.
hits the IL.
I do like this comment that we got in the chat. Drew Gilbert. That's somebody that I have liked in the past. I think a lot of us did, especially I think it was when he was with Houston. It was Jose Altuve said how he made comments about how good of a player he thought Drew Gilbert was going to be, and now he's been traded a couple times since with San Francisco. 3 home runs since his call up and 2 in the last 3 games. So that's a good call out by F there, Drew Gilbert.
There we go. All right. Well, thanks for that. Kevin then closes out here as Craig Kimbrell has not closed us out. That game is still going on. He got an out. So I can't make an announcement on what if Sean Armstrong got the win or not yet. So closes out with any other pieces of wisdom that we can take into the third to last FAAB period of the 2025 season.
It's something I say all the time, and I have alluded to it. That the Rangers did not score in the 10th, by the way. We have all the things, all the little things add up to a big thing. I've said that so many times over the past few years, Adam. But this is the time of year where that you think you've looked at everything, figure something else out to look at when you're setting your lineup, when you're making your FAAB. make sure don't forget that everything we talk about, our listeners know everything that we say. It's nice to be reminded from time to time of these things, Adam. So especially when we're this time of year, it matters just as much in April as it does now. But now we don't have time to fix our mistakes. So make sure you're covering all your bases.
That last point, we literally don't have time. We don't have time to fix the mistakes. We talk about early drafting. Yeah, it's cool to draft those FAAB leagues in October and November because you can quote fix the mistakes in the first couple FAAB periods of the season. Yeah, we're not at that point in September with only 3 weeks to go. All right, with all that then and everything else, that's going to do it for episode 230 of On the Wire. I am Adam Howe on behalf of Kevin Hasting. Thanks for listening, and we bid you goodbye.